Trinity to most of these groups equals three gods,
Right.
which I agree. There's not three gods in the Old Testament, at least true in terms of true gods. So we have to explain the biblical view of the Trinity first. Then we can look at the Old Testament and ask the question, were the Old Testament believers Unitarian, or did they hold to a multi-personal God?
Okay.
And that answer is answered in the affirmative. They were definitely, number one, not Unitarian, meaning there's no passage in the Old Testament that says God is one person. Mm-hmm. But rather, we find Old Testament examples where the Old Testament authors and believers held to the view that God is multi-personal. We see that with plural, and it's amazing how many we find of these plural words describing the one true God. Plural adjectives, mm-hmm. plural nouns, plural verbs, plural prepositions, like in, for instance, a plural verb in Genesis 1:26. In our English, it's translated as a pronoun, but in Hebrew, it's a plural verb. Let us make man in our image and in our likeness, right? Mm-hmm. That is a plural verb, not a plural majesty. That wasn't used, until hundreds of years later. But another plural verb is in Genesis 11. Let us confuse their language. I mentioned plural prepositions. I love this one because it mentions the name or the term for one, aked, in Genesis 3:22. Man has become like one, aked, of us. It's a plural preposition there. And one of my favorites, now I'm not going to give you all of them because we can just go on and on and on with these plural descriptions. Ecclesiastes 12:1. Our translations, most of them will say, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. But the Hebrew says, because Creator is plural, remember your creators in the days of your youth. And in fact, Young's literal translation actually translates it like that. So when we see all these plural verbs, mm-hmm. plural nouns, plural adjectives, like in Proverbs 30, where God is called holy ones, plural prepositions, and we see no passage that describes God as one person, we can deduce from the Old Testament information that clearly the authors and believers were not Unitarian, but rather they held to a multi-personal God.
I have been following Trinitarians for a long time, their teachings, their debates. And it's only until recently, in the last few years, that we hear such garbage as what we're hearing now. That the Old Testament believers did not believe in a Unitarian God or one God, but they believed in a multi-personal God who is described as being three divine persons. And this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There are Trinitarians that do not follow this ridiculous teaching. If you follow different debates, for example, Dr. William Lane Craig and Lee Strobel, they debated a Jewish rabbi. And when the Jewish rabbi explained that Abraham did not pray to a multi-personal God, when he explained that Noah and all these characters in the Old Testament, they spoke to one God, and only one God revealed himself to them. As the Jewish rabbi explained that, Dr. William Lane Craig, he acknowledged that the Old Testament does not teach a Trinity. So Dr. Dalcour and other of the more modern theologians are a little bit on the exaggerated side, and they have an attitude that they know it all and that nobody knows what they know. And honestly, they're totally wrong. This is something we have to look at carefully and not go and believe such theologians that are teaching that God is more than one. God, the Bible teaches that God is one Lord, one God, one Lord. And all the verses on creation, there's 5 verses that talk about the Creator, but all the other verses on creating and created and so forth, they all point to He. One God, one being, one person. And those are in the hundreds, maybe thousands. While Dalcour is talking about a few verses where the Hebrew word can be manipulated to say plurality. But if you interview the Jewish people, they will tell you that even, for example, the word Elohim, even though it is sort of a plural word, they understand that God is supreme over all. So the Jewish people know how to interpret and explain all these pluralities. But Dr. Dalcour is using this to silence history, to silence the Jewish people, the Jewish nation that gave us monotheism. While all the nations of the world have been plural, they have believed in a multi-personal God or gods. The Jewish people were the ones that held to the divine truth that God is one. Not one unity, not one family, but one God and one being. Oh, and one last thing. Though Dr. Dalcour talks about, the Old Testament and so forth, it appears like he's using history, but he's not. I would suggest that someone asks Dr. Dalcour, what is the history? What is the origin of the Trinity? And let's see what he says.